Good morning, everyone. It's Denise from Dobby Books. Welcome back. And today I'm doing my weekend video sooner. Today is Thursday, and the spring break is coming, and I'll be on vacation, so I won't really have time to do that this weekend. So I'm going to go over just a few books that I got over the week, and I'm also going to cover what I'm reading. So let's do the little mini haul first, and then we'll go through the rest. So here's one book, and I don't remember where I heard about this book, but it is so it's so relatable to what's going on with us right now that I really was intrigued enough that I think I want to read this. I had originally gotten the audiobook on this, but the narration, they can make it or break it. It broke it. So I decided to get the hard copy, and I think I also got the ebook on Libro FM. So this is the book. They thought they were free. The Germans, 1933 to 1945, by Milton Mayer. This was originally written not long after World War II. Let me look that up for you. This was originally published. Milton Mayer died in 1986. And I believe the original publication date on this was 1955. So this is the revised version of 2017. And what this author did, he was a German American and Jewish, and about 7 years after the end of World War II, he decided to go back to this village in Germany, and I want to remember the name. And what he did is he spoke to 10 former, I guess some of these were involved with the Nazi Party. If not, then they were very much pro-Nazi for the Third Reich. And he wanted to get their perspective now that the Third Reich had fallen, and they're living through the what's left of Germany after World War II, and everything that the war brought on them, to get their perspective and to kind of see, how did it happen for you? Why did you believe in this so much? And I think that's a very something relatable to what we're going through now, to try to just figure things out. How do we do this? How do we fall for something so completely and utterly that only ends up destroying us, and just causing so much damage, So again, they thought they were free. The Germans, 1933 to 1945, by Milton Mayer. And yeah, I believe you can get this as an ebook. Now, the next read. This is not going to be my read. You know how I was working on my Pendragon collection? Pendragon is a series written by D.J. McHale. I only had one book left in that 10-book collection that I was having the hardest time getting. I couldn't find good quality editions of the book. I wanted a hardback. I was always shooting for a first edition, but it was not truly important for me. I just wanted to get a really good copy of this book. And finally, I found one. And last night I covered the dust jacket in Mylar to protect it. So all 10 books now have this nice clear Mylar cover on it. This is book 5, and I just love that cover. So that's it. My whole collection now looks brand new with these covers on them, and I'm very happy. It took a while, over a year. Some people spend longer, but this really is a beautiful book. And I sanded the pages just the tiniest bit to get some of that yellow out. There's a point. I got this block that has the sand, the sandpaper on it. That doesn't work because the block was wider than the pages, and I didn't think of that. I didn't want to get a sheet because the package of the sandpaper has several sheets in it. I didn't want several sheets. I wanted 2 at the most, but I couldn't find any with that small amount. And this particular store didn't sell individual sheets of well, actually individual sheets of the one that I needed. And I think the one that I needed was number 120. It says it's 100 or higher. There were no individual sheets. So I ended up getting the block, and that was a mistake because I really couldn't get into all the, the from this end to this end cleanly like I wanted to. And I didn't want to be opening the covers too wide. So yeah, individual sheets cut into small ways so you can wrap it around your fingers and sand the pages. There's a reason for that. So my final book for the Pendragon series. I'm so happy. And these next books I'm going to show you are books that I decided I'm going to show you. They're the books that I'm reading for my capstone project. And I looked at the stack the other day and said, why don't I just share this with my viewers? Because they are books I got. I mean, So let me go through this. And I'm learning a lot. And some of the things are for my history class. I'll hear about a book when we're studying, a particular topic in history, and I think, ooh, now that sounds very interesting. So forgive me if I've already shared some of them with you. I'm just going to go through the whole stack. These are the books I decided to purchase for myself. This is on the capstone on Philip Pullman, Demon Voices on Stories and Storytelling by the author of His Dark Materials, Philip Pullman. And this one is, it's interesting that it says, the internationally best-selling author of the His Dark Materials trilogy provides a spellbinding journey into the narratives that have shaped his vision, his experience of writing, and the keys to mastering the art of storytelling. In these warm, witty, and entertaining essays, Philip Pullman charts the history of his enchantment with story through his own books and those of Blake, Milton, Dickens, the Brothers Grimm, and others, and delves into the vital role of narrative in education, religion, and science. At once personal and wide-ranging, Demon Voices is both a revelation of the methods of a great contemporary master and a fascinating exploration of storytelling itself. Now, I'm studying this so I get to know his motivations behind the way he treats institutionalized religion, in his books. That's what caught my eye. So that's one of them. Then this one I also purchased, Philip Pullman, Master Storyteller, A Guide to the Worlds of His Dark Materials. I'm not really providing a literary critique on his writing or the story per se. I'm researching the author. As I explained, there is really no biography or autobiography on Philip Pullman. It's bits and pieces that I find through books and some interviews on YouTube that are helping me become more familiar with him, and that's my focus on my capstone essay. And there is one chapter in here, I think, that's giving me some biography of him and that's helping me figure things out. And I think the rest of this is not really going to help, but what can I say? All right. Another one is His Dark Materials Illuminated. This arrived today. This I ordered from Barnes & Noble. Critical Essays on Philip Pullman's Trilogy. I know I'm going to find something in this. There was something that was, let me see, there's something in the back here that I saw. Philip Pullman, a biographical note. But I also know that the various authors whose essays are in here on Philip Pullman are going to provide some, this talks about, let me see, what was it? Pullman and Theology. Pullman and Science Fiction. And that's the chapter, that's the section in this book that I'm going to be using for my research. So Philip Pullman, His Dark Materials Illuminated, Critical Essays on Philip Pullman's Trilogy, edited by Millicent, Lenz, and Carole Scott. Very nice book. Now, these other books are what I got through my historiography class. I would hear about this title. We were studying a particular philosophy of history or ideology, and I thought, I really want to get this book. So this one I got recently. This is the new one. States and Social Revolutions by Theda Skocpol, and I know I'm not pronouncing that correctly. And she looked at what brought about revolutions. And she looked at the USA, well, when it was still colonial, before we became a nation, our own nation. And then she looked at France, and then she looked at China. And she wanted to see what were the key factors that brought about revolution in those countries. So it's a comparative analysis of France, Russia, and China, excuse me. But also she mentions the USA in this. And I thought this interested me because, of course, the current political climate, and there was something in this book that I caught during the discussion that intrigued me. And I said, I wonder about that. So there's this one. This is another one that I got, Jungian literary criticism. There was something in this that I wanted to apply to my capstone project, looking at someone or an author, whatever, from a psychological point of view. I don't know which the chapter was in here, but these are various authors. And if I can find it really quick, I will. I just don't want to drag this out. I'm not going to find it, but there was something in here that was going to be useful for my capstone project. And I think the topic itself, Jungian literary criticism, for me, that's interesting. I would like to read more of that. If I can find my own copy of this, I will. I want to find a good edition. Now, the next one I got for the history, no, this is for the capstone on Philip Pullman, is the book titled Humanism by Jeaneane Fowler, because it's got the cover on it. I don't know if you can see the cover. Humanism. And this book here is going to give me some basic information on the beliefs of humanists, which is what Philip Pullman very much is. I'm catching on to that. Some of the things that he's talked about definitely ring true to humanism. So I need to learn more about that so I can understand humanism better and Philip Pullman. So this was another good book. And another one that I got was God and the British Soldier, Religion and the British Army in the First and Second World Wars by Michael Snape. Now, his last name got me because I thought, Snape? Really? There's an actual last name, Snape? I thought it was just in Harry Potter. So I'm learning a few things. But I needed to find out, in an effort to figure out Philip Pullman's childhood, what were the influences in his life, what was the climate in Britain, etc., because he was born in 1946, so a year after the war ended. And I needed to see what the setting was, what the context was in Britain, because, as you know, it was for centuries a Christian nation, and then eventually moved to secularism. And being an American and not experiencing that for myself, I needed to become familiar with some history of Britain in general, its Christian history as well, and then how it moved from that identity to one that was more secular. So this has really been neat. I love learning about this. So this is giving me an idea of what things were like for soldiers. And the reason I chose this book is because Philip Pullman's father worked for the Royal Air Force, was in the Royal Air Force. So that's going to give me an idea of what the climate was like there. And then the last one I want to show you, I can't show you the cover because it's got some, the library information, but it's Periodizing Secularization. The author's full name is Clive D. Field. And the debate goes on in Britain itself among theologians and intellectuals when and how the secularization happened, where it started, what started it. Was this a gradual process? Did it happen very quickly, all at once? And that's still being debated. But this is sort of breaking it down a little bit more. And I'm learning about other authors. One of them is Callum Brown, and I forgot the other one. It starts with a K, but they each wrote books about the same topic in Britain, the secularization of Britain. And although they're coming from two different angles, both agreed that it was something that happened from the top down. And it could have happened as early as the Enlightenment, obviously, because the Enlightenment was looking at science and reason. And over the decades, the church leaders, the Anglican leaders, and of course the Catholic ones as well, were striving to find a way to reconcile religion and science. And it was something that they were talking back and forth amongst themselves and with each other across those two disciplines. And in the 1930s, with the rise of fascism, it sort of was put on the shelf because there were other important issues to deal with. And then after the war, then there was another phase of that secularization. So this has become a very interesting topic for me to study. What's interesting is when you study one topic, for instance, I thought I was going to be, learning more about Philip Pullman, but look at all the other topics that it's brought me into and that I've learned about. And that's the exciting thing for research about me. And I think that's why I loved history so much. It just has so much more. There's so many layers and there's so many directions that it brings you in and so much new knowledge that you can gain. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. So now let me tell you what I'm reading. So I am doing middle grade March, and I want to show you what I have, what I'm currently reading right now. All right, so first I'm going to start with what I finished reading. So I finished Redwall, the second book in the Redwall series, Mossflower. And this is a prequel to the original Redwall, and the bad guys were wildcats. And Martin the Brave, I think he's called. Martin the Warrior, I'm forgetting now. It shows he's introduced in this series here, whereas in the first book, he's a memory. So here we learn about Martin the Warrior, Martin Brave, and how he was instrumental in helping to free a group of woodland creatures in a forest known as Mossflower. What a delightful story. And you still get the action that you would get in a more grown-up novel, but this is on a kid's level, so you don't get the blood and the gore, but you definitely know that someone just got squashed by a huge stone, or a big eagle just swooped down and picked them up for dinner and stuff like that. This is really such an enjoyable series. So this was the second one in Redwall, Mossflower, and this is the series by Brian Jacques. And I also finished Homer Price by Robert McCloskey, and this book contains 5 stories of Homer Price. I think there were 5, right? 6 stories. And I think, let me see, not mystery yarn. I think my favorite story was the donuts. And it was a story of, there was someone who lives in the town. He always was interested in newfangled mechanical things that would make everything more efficient. And he had put together his own donut making machine. And he didn't like to work a lot. His name was Uncle Ulysses. And what I find interesting here in the Homer Price series is that people in his family have the Greek name. So there's Homer, there's his Uncle Ulysses, and there was another character in there, his other uncle, Telemachus. I never realized that. Of course, reading it as a kid, I never realized that. But there's Homer, Ulysses, and Telemachus in the Homer Price series. Did any of you know that? I didn't catch on to that. But his uncle Ulysses loved to make newfangled machines to make life more efficient. And one of the machines he made was a donut making machine. He would just make the batter, put it in the machine, and it would process, fry the donuts and take them out and flip them over, and he'd have lots of donuts. And in this particular story, Uncle Ulysses went to go to the barbershop because that's where, the men would hang out and play chess or whatever. His wife didn't like him doing that, but that's what he did. And he asked Homer if he would watch the cafe for him because a lot of the people were in the theater and there really weren't going to be any customers until after the movie was over. So Homer agreed to do that. But one of the visitors that came to the place was a well-to-do woman with her butler. And she said, "Oh, a donut making machine. Oh, I'm going to prepare my recipe. You're just going to love it. They're the best donuts ever." And she made a huge, big batch of batter. And Homer was thinking, you could see the worried look on his face because he's thinking to himself, that's a lot more than Uncle Ulysses told me to put in the donut machine. So what ended up happening is the donut machine kept making more and more donuts, and before they knew it, they were running out of room to put all the donuts in the cafe. His uncle shows up to see what's happening with I believe that's the sheriff there, and they ended up devising a very smart way of selling all the donuts. One of the people that was inside the donut shop had those big triangle, they're called sandwich signs, putting that on them, and they would sell the donuts to the people. And it wasn't doing very well. But what happened at a certain point when they were doing that is the well-to-do woman came back with her butler, and she had lost one of her bracelets when she was making the batter. So what they ended up doing is changing the sign and offering a $100 reward to the person who could find that jewelry in one of the donuts. So of course you figure now the donuts are just selling like hotcakes. And one lucky guy, one lucky young man ended up finding the donut, finding the bracelet in the donut. So he got his $100, and I believe he got a couple dozen donuts to take home. And it's interesting how the illustrations here are kind of old. I mean, you look at it now with our 21st century eyes, and we look at some of the things here, and you can see some of this is kind of dated, but I think that we should be okay with that, right? Because we understand where we are now and what we've learned since then, and we're not going to fall over and just have conniption fits. So Homer Price, it was a good book. It was a sweet book to read. And those were the two that I finished this week. The one that I'm currently reading right now is by Roald Dahl, James and the Giant Peach. This was the first book that he wrote and dedicated to his daughter Olivia. This was written and published in 1961, dedicated to his daughter Olivia and his other daughter, let me find the name first before, and his other daughter Tessa. A year later in 1962, Olivia contracted measles, and she eventually died from that. And it was very hard on Roald Dahl, as you can imagine. And many years later, in 1983, I believe, in 1982, he wrote a second book and dedicated that book to Olivia. And this is the book, The BFG. And this is going to be the next book that I'm going to read when I finish Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And the other book that I'll be reading finally is The Clockwork by Philip Pullman, which is, I'm saving the best for last, so I'm reading that. And one other book I threw in because one of my viewers had said it was such a wonderful story. I put that book in, but I don't know if I'll be able to finish it. And it is, if I can find it. Oh, goodness. I can't find it. But it's entitled The War That Saved My Life. If I can get through these other 1, 2, 3 books that I'm reading right now, I will read that book. I really hope I do. So everybody, I think that's it. I will see you when I come back from my vacation. Maybe, oh, you know what one of the places I'm going to go to is New York City, and I'm going to the Harry Potter store. So I plan to take pictures, and I'm going to drag my husband into taking videos of me in the store, and I want to see if I can share some of that with you. So I wish you all the best next week during spring break, if that applies to any one of you. And I will see you after I come back. And thanks for hanging out with me, everybody. I love you all. Take care.